September 22, 2023, 11:47 a.m. Sevastopol, Crimea. The headquarters of Russia's Black Sea Fleet stood as it had for over 2 centuries. A neoclassical building overlooking Sevastopol Bay, it housed the command structure of Russia's entire southern naval force. Inside, officers planned operations, coordinated logistics, and maintained Russia's grip on Crimean waters. The building was protected by layers of air defense. S-400 batteries ringed the city. Pantsir S-1 systems provided close-range coverage. Electronic warfare systems jammed GPS signals. Russian commanders believed their headquarters was untouchable. At 11:47 a.m., they learned otherwise. A Storm Shadow cruise missile, launched from a Ukrainian Su-24 aircraft 250 kilometers away, struck the headquarters building. The 560-kilogram Broach warhead penetrated 3 floors before detonating. The explosion collapsed the building's central section. 34 Russian naval officers died instantly. Another 57 were wounded. The command structure of the Black Sea Fleet was decapitated. This is Millfront, where we analyze how Ukraine strikes targets Russia thought were invulnerable. Because this wasn't luck. This was months of intelligence gathering, precise planning, and a cruise missile designed to defeat the world's most sophisticated air defenses. Welcome to the technical breakdown of how one missile changed naval warfare in the Black Sea. Subscribe now. You need to see how Storm Shadow rewrote the rules. The Storm Shadow cruise missile, known as Scalp EG in French service, Vestige en Prométhée en chaque Echirus, represents one of the most advanced air-launched weapons in Western arsenals. Developed jointly by the United Kingdom and France, it was designed specifically to penetrate sophisticated air defense networks and destroy hardened targets. The missile measures 5.1 meters long with a wingspan of 3 meters. It weighs 1,300 kilograms at launch. Its turbojet engine provides a range exceeding 250 kilometers, allowing launch aircraft to remain safely outside enemy air defense zones. The guidance system combines GPS, terrain reference navigation, and infrared imaging for terminal homing. This redundancy ensures the missile can navigate even when GPS jamming is active. The warhead is the Broach system, Bomb Royal Ordnance Augmented Charge. It's a 2-stage penetrating warhead designed to defeat hardened bunkers. The first stage, a shaped charge, blasts through concrete or earth. The second stage, a follow-through bomb, penetrates the breach and detonates inside the target. Against a building like the Black Sea Fleet headquarters, with reinforced concrete construction, the Broach warhead was devastating. Ukraine received Storm Shadow missiles from the United Kingdom in May 2023. The first deliveries included approximately 50 missiles. France provided additional Scalp EG missiles shortly after. By September, Ukrainian forces had conducted several strikes, learning the missile's capabilities and limitations. The September 22nd strike on Sevastopol was the most ambitious yet. Sevastopol was not an easy target. As the main base of Russia's Black Sea Fleet, it was among the most heavily defended locations in Russian-controlled territory. S-400 air defense systems, positioned on hills surrounding the city, provided coverage out to 400 kilometers. Their 92N6E gravestone radars could track hundreds of targets simultaneously. Pantsir S-1 short-range systems protected key installations. Electronic warfare units jammed GPS signals across the region. Russian fighters patrolled from nearby air bases. Attacking Sevastopol required penetrating multiple defense layers without being detected, tracked, or intercepted. Ukrainian planners spent weeks preparing. Intelligence services, combining satellite imagery, signals intelligence, and human sources, mapped Russian air defense positions. They identified gaps in coverage, valleys where terrain blocked radar, timing windows when fewer fighters were airborne. The flight path for the Storm Shadow was calculated with precision. The missile would fly low, hugging terrain, using valleys and ridgelines to mask its radar signature. It would approach Sevastopol from the south, over water, where Russian radars were focused on higher altitude threats. At 11:35 a.m. on September 22nd, a Ukrainian Su-24 bomber took off from an airbase in central Ukraine. The aircraft, a Cold War-era Soviet design, had been modified to carry Storm Shadow missiles. The modifications included new pylons, wiring, and integration with Western targeting systems. The Su-24 flew low, below 200 meters, to avoid Russian radar detection. At 11:42 a.m., approximately 250 kilometers from Sevastopol, the Su-24 climbed briefly to 2,000 meters. The pilot received final target coordinates via encrypted data link. At 11:43 a.m., the Storm Shadow launched. Its booster ignited, accelerating the missile away from the aircraft. The Su-24 immediately descended and turned northwest, exiting the area before Russian air defenses could react. The Storm Shadow's flight profile was programmed for terrain masking. The missile descended to 50 meters above ground, following valleys and coastlines. Its terrain reference navigation system compared radar altimeter data to a pre-loaded digital terrain map, ensuring the missile stayed on course, even without GPS. As the missile approached Sevastopol, Russian electronic warfare systems detected its presence. But detection was not interception. The Storm Shadow flew too low for S-400 systems to engage effectively. The curvature of the Earth limited radar horizon. By the time Panzer S-1 systems acquired the missile, it was seconds from impact. At 11:47 a.m., the Storm Shadow entered its terminal phase. Its infrared seeker activated, comparing the target scene to stored imagery. The seeker locked onto the Black Sea Fleet headquarters building. The missile adjusted course, diving toward the target at 30 degrees. At 11:47 and 14 seconds, impact. Which defense could have stopped Storm Shadow? A. S-400 missiles. B. Panzer S-1 guns. C. Electronic warfare. Comment below. The Broach warhead's first stage detonated on contact with the building's roof. The shaped charge, focused through a copper liner, generated a jet of superheated metal traveling at 8,000 meters per second. This jet punched through 3 meters of reinforced concrete. The follow-through bomb, weighing 450 kilograms, penetrated the breach. It fell 3 floors before its delayed fuse triggered. The explosion occurred inside the building's central section, where senior officers were meeting. The blast wave propagated through corridors and stairwells. Reinforced concrete walls, designed to withstand conventional bombs, contained the explosion. But this containment worked against the occupants. The pressure wave, unable to escape, bounced back through interior spaces with lethal force. The explosion killed 34 officers. Among them were senior staff responsible for Black Sea Fleet operations. The fleet's chief of staff was critically wounded. Communication systems, located in the building's lower floors, were destroyed. For several hours, the Black Sea Fleet operated without centralized command. The strategic impact extended beyond casualties. The headquarters building was more than offices. It housed the operational nerve center coordinating all Black Sea Fleet activities: submarine patrols, surface ship movements, naval aviation sorties, logistics coordination. All ran through systems in that building. The building's destruction forced Russia to establish temporary command facilities. This took days. During that window, Ukrainian forces conducted operations with reduced Russian interference, naval drone attacks, missile strikes on Russian-occupied Crimean targets, mining operations near Russian-controlled ports. The tactical lessons were profound. Storm Shadow demonstrated that even heavily defended targets could be struck with precision. The missile's terrain-following flight profile defeated long-range air defenses. Its redundant navigation systems overcame GPS jamming. Its penetrating warhead destroyed hardened structures. For Russia, the strike revealed critical vulnerabilities. Their air defense network, optimized for high-altitude threats, struggled against low-flying cruise missiles. Their electronic warfare, effective against basic GPS-guided weapons, couldn't stop terrain reference navigation. Their assumption that Sevastopol was untouchable proved false. For Ukraine, the strike validated Western weapon systems and tactics. Storm Shadow provided a capability Ukraine's own weapons lacked: the ability to strike targets deep in Russian-controlled territory, the ability to penetrate sophisticated defenses, the ability to destroy high-value targets with a single missile. The financial cost to Russia was significant. The headquarters building, a historical structure, would cost an estimated $200 million to rebuild. More importantly, the loss of 34 trained naval officers represented years of institutional knowledge. The disruption to Black Sea Fleet operations couldn't be measured in dollars alone. Intelligence analysis after the strike revealed additional details. Satellite imagery showed the building's roof collapsed into the floors below. Debris filled surrounding streets. Russian emergency services worked for 3 days to clear rubble and recover bodies. Signals intelligence intercepted Russian military communications describing the chaos. One intercepted message from a Russian admiral to Moscow stated, "Command structure compromised. Establishing alternate facility. Timeline unknown." This message confirmed what Ukrainian intelligence suspected. The strike had achieved its objective. The psychological impact was equally important. Russian personnel in Sevastopol, previously confident in their defenses, now understood they were vulnerable. Morale declined. Officers requested transfers away from Crimea. Recruitment for Black Sea Fleet positions became more difficult. Ukrainian morale, by contrast, soared. The strike proved that Western weapons, properly employed, could reach any Russian target. It validated the strategy of long-range precision strikes over costly ground offensives. It showed that Ukraine could impose costs on Russia far from the front lines. The strike also influenced Western policy. Prior to September 22nd, some Western officials worried that providing long-range weapons might escalate the conflict. The Sevastopol strike demonstrated that Ukraine could use these weapons effectively and responsibly. This encouraged further deliveries of advanced systems. Here on Millfront, we don't just report strikes. We analyze why they succeed. The Sevastopol headquarters strike succeeded because Ukrainian planners understood Russian defenses, exploited their weaknesses, and employed a weapon system designed for exactly this mission. Storm Shadow wasn't overkill. It was the right tool for the job. How many Russian officers were killed? A. 22, B. 34, C. 47. Answer at end. The tactical details of the Sevastopol strike reveal how modern precision weapons overcome traditional defenses. Storm Shadow's success rested on 3 pillars: flight profile, navigation redundancy, and warhead design. The flight profile was critical. Traditional cruise missiles fly at medium altitude, 300 to 1,000 meters, balancing fuel efficiency against radar detection. Storm Shadow flies at 30 to 50 meters above ground. This low altitude places the missile below the radar horizon for most air defense systems. The S-400, with radars positioned on hilltops, could theoretically detect low-flying targets, but terrain masking, flying through valleys, and behind ridge lines, broke the radar line of sight. By the time the missile crossed into radar coverage, it was too close and too low for effective engagement. Navigation redundancy defeated electronic warfare. Russian EW systems in Crimea jammed GPS signals across a wide area. A GPS-only guided weapon would lose accuracy. Storm Shadow combines GPS with terrain reference navigation. The missile's radar altimeter continuously measures ground clearance. This data is compared to a preloaded terrain map. If GPS is jammed, terrain reference keeps the missile on course. The infrared seeker provides terminal guidance. In the final seconds, the seeker compares the target scene to stored imagery. Even if GPS and terrain reference both failed, the seeker would still guide the missile to impact. This layered redundancy made Storm Shadow nearly impossible to spoof or jam. The Broach warhead was designed for exactly this scenario. A hardened government or military building with reinforced concrete construction. The two-stage design ensured both penetration and internal destruction. The first stage created the breach. The second stage exploited it. A conventional warhead, even a large one, might damage the building's exterior without destroying its interior. Broach guaranteed internal destruction. The Russian response to the Sevastopol strike revealed their lack of effective countermeasures. In the days following September 22nd, Russia increased air defense patrols. They repositioned Pantsir S-1 systems closer to critical infrastructure. They deployed additional electronic warfare units. None of these measures addressed the fundamental problem. Storm Shadow's flight profile was too low for long-range SAMs, too fast for short-range guns to track in time, and too smart to jam. Russian air defenses, designed in the 1990s and 2000s, assumed threats would fly at medium to high altitude. Storm Shadow violated that assumption. The only reliable defense would be combat air patrols with fighters actively hunting cruise missiles. But this required maintaining dozens of aircraft airborne 24/7. The fuel cost and pilot fatigue made it unsustainable. Russia attempted to adapt. They claimed to have shot down subsequent Storm Shadow strikes. Some claims were credible, others were propaganda. Independent analysis suggested Ukraine launched approximately 15 to 20 Storm Shadow strikes between May and December 2023. Of these, Ukrainian sources claimed 12 to 15 successful hits. Even if Russia intercepted some, the success rate exceeded 70%. For a weapon system targeting hardened facilities deep in enemy territory, this was extraordinary. The economic equation favored Ukraine. Each Storm Shadow missile cost approximately $1 million. The headquarters building destroyed on September 22nd was worth $200 million. The 34 officers killed represented decades of training. The operational disruption lasted weeks. $1 million to impose $200 million in direct costs, plus strategic disruption. This was cost-effective warfare. The strategic implications extended beyond the Black Sea. Storm Shadow strikes demonstrated to Russia that no facility in occupied Ukraine or Crimea was safe. This forced Russia to disperse command facilities, reducing efficiency. It forced Russia to allocate more resources to air defense, diverting them from offensive operations. It forced Russian officers to consider personal risk when accepting assignments in occupied territories. For Ukraine, Storm Shadow became a strategic weapon, not just for destroying targets, but for shaping Russian decision-making. Every successful strike reminded Russia that Ukraine could reach anywhere. Every intercepted strike cost Russia expensive air defense missiles. The missile became a force multiplier beyond its direct military effect. The September 22nd strike also influenced NATO. Alliance members observed that Ukraine could employ advanced Western weapons without escalating to direct NATO-Russia conflict. This observation encouraged further military aid: tanks, infantry fighting vehicles, air defense systems, and eventually, F-16 fighters. Each capability was once considered too escalatory. Each was provided after Ukraine demonstrated responsible use of previous capabilities. The answer to the quiz? B. 34. 34 Russian naval officers were killed in the September 22nd Storm Shadow strike on Black Sea Fleet headquarters in Sevastopol. Another 57 were wounded. This single strike decapitated the command structure of Russia's southern naval force. Think about what this means. One missile, launched from 250 kilometers away, penetrated multiple air defense layers, destroyed a hardened headquarters building, killed or wounded nearly 100 officers, and disrupted Black Sea Fleet operations for weeks. This is modern precision warfare. Ukraine, the smaller force, using Western technology to impose disproportionate costs on Russia. $1 million missile causes $200 million in damage. That's the kind of exchange ratio that wins wars. The Storm Shadow strike proved several things. Western weapons work when properly employed. Ukrainian forces can plan and execute complex operations. Russian air defenses have critical gaps, and no target is truly safe. Was this strike justified? Should Ukraine have targeted Sevastopol? What's the most effective weapon against Russian command centers? Comment below. And if you believe precision defeats mass, type Millfront in the comments. Your engagement shares this analysis with people studying modern warfare. Subscribe to Millfront, because we break down the strikes that change wars. The headquarters building in Sevastopol is being rebuilt, but the confidence it represented, that's gone forever. Stay vigilant.